Washington Post critic Richard Harrington called this movie a funny, poignant, and technically proficient film. One that should thoroughly embarrass those studios that routinely offer up badly made, multi-million-dollar disasters. Janet Maslin of the New York Times hailed it as an exuberant satire, uneven but tirelessly energetic, with the kind of comic bluster that can override any lapse. And Time Out critic Jeff Andrews said if you value enthusiasm and imagination more than glossy sophistication, you'll laugh. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Hollywood Shuffle.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be?
It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters. John.
Hi, Starfighters. Hi, Dan.
John, how are you? Hey.
I'm doing okay. I'm hanging out. I have a beer.
Nice.
That's something that's happening right now. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
You have a clear liquid.
I have a Zima. No, I'm just kidding. It's water.
Don't kid about Zima. Look, there's no Zima shaming on this podcast.
Look, I graduated high school in 1995, so I'm in the key demographic to have consumed Zima.
The Zima graphic, Generation Zima?
Yeah, basically like you were, 18 to 25 in the mid to late 90s.
Right. Yeah.
Then you probably had a Zima at some point at someone's shore house or something.
Of course it's at a shore house. For anybody not living in New Jersey, shore houses.
That's where
it's at.
That's where generally Zima would have been.
Zima's consumed.
Yeah, but you know what? Hey, I remember Zima being kind of refreshing. So, the weather's getting nice. It's warm out. We got the hammock outside. I could go for a nice cold Zima. Not ironically.
So I'm assuming that Zima has a little bit more like sugar than something like a hard seltzer. Or is it more along the line? What are you looking at me like that for?
I'm sorry. I laugh every time I hear the phrase hard seltzer. I don't know.
I'm not going to shout out name brands.
No. I'm not asking you to shout out a name brand. I just think the idea of hard seltzer is silly. I'm going to just say it. I think hard, and I've never tried it. I haven't had it. I can't say, but
I had like half of one. And it started out tasty, and then I just don't know if I didn't drink it fast enough, and it just, I don't know, didn't really satisfy me after a couple minutes.
I mean, are you supposed to drink it really fast? I guess to just
I think that just like as it got less cold, it got less interesting.
Do you think that the idea
nastiness came through?
Do you think that the idea behind something like a hard seltzer is kind of playing into the day drinking crowd? It feels like it would be more socially Okay, all right, yeah. So it's like more socially acceptable to have a to have a hard seltzer in the middle of the day than let's say, I don't know, start doing Jaeger bombs at around noon.
Right. True. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's just 2018, 2019 hit, and people were saying, I'm ready for something new, something I can consume during the day. And then here we are, and we're kind of still living in that.
I want to get drunk, but I want people to be distracted when they see me drinking by the fact that I'm drinking hard seltzer and get so caught up in that concept that they forget that I'm drinking. I don't know. I thought maybe it took after the whole hard root beer thing, which I was like into for a summer.
Oh, really? I feel like that came and went really fast.
Oh,
not in your house?
No, I mean, I remember it was a big thing like summer 2015. That was the year of hard root beer.
Well, this is not a podcast about alcoholic beverages that are fads. This is a podcast about movies and how they could be reimagined nowadays as a sequel, prequel, reboot, remake.
Well, I'm saying let's cancel Hard Seltzer and reboot Zima. So
didn't they reboot Zima?
they might.
I thought they brought it back.
I don't recall. I think Crystal Pepsi made like
yeah,
a
but I
little
feel
bit
like
of
Zima was part of that whole like movement.
the whole mid '90s nostalgia movement.
Yeah. Okay, so in February 2017, this is according to Wikipedia, Miller Coors announced that they are in negotiations to bring Zima back to the U.S. market. On June 2nd, 2017, it was announced Zima would have a limited release beginning July 4th weekend. There's nothing in its timeline beyond that. So we can assume it happened? I don't know.
I was not aware of it if it did.
Well, anyway.
It's a shame, but
Now, yeah.
It's fine.
So Dan, see any good movies lately?
I'm trying to think about what I've been watching that hasn't been that, for the purposes of podcasting. I don't recall seeing watching anything recently. It's the end of the school year, and it's weird because it's anticlimactic.
Yeah.
So, but yet it is still the end of the school year. So I'm doing things like all staff Zoom meetings, and I'm having Teams Zoom meetings with my classes where a third of them show up, and I'm just like, and it's awkward and it's weird, and like at the end of the call, and I'm just like, have a great summer. Okay.
Yeah.
Weird. I'm hanging up face, or I'm clicking the leave meeting button.
What is the class of 2020 yearbook looking like? Is it just a bunch of screen grabs of Zoom sessions?
Yes. I mean, we had about we had a little bit more than 2/3 of the year before we shut down. So we have plenty of material. And then there's also, it's the screen grabs from the virtual Spirit Week, and all the teachers. We did a recording I took part in adapting Oh, the Places You'll Go.
Okay.
For our class of 2020. So I took most of it and kind of rewrote it because as I told someone on Teams who was thanking me for doing that, and I was like, yeah, you know what? My mind automatically changes lyrics and words to things because I grew up listening to a lot of Weird Al.
Right.
So I'm like, this is just something my brain naturally does. So I tinkered with a lot of Oh, the Places You'll Go, and then had different members of the staff read different bits, and we sent in videos, and it's probably going, the rhythm of it I'm sure is going to be all off, because breaking Dr. Seuss up into 66 written lines that everyone's doing individually, even though I did a whole recording of me reading the whole thing, which I think 2 people listened to. It's fine.
Seuss has a cadence. You got to stick to the cadence.
Yes. It's not a consistent cadence, but everything, it blends, because there's those moments where it'll slow down, or the rhyme scheme, the rhythm will change, and it's like, and oh no, what if you do? You'll be it's reading Dr. Seuss is like taking a long drive down a country road.
Have you seen many of the Dr. Seuss adaptation movies? And I'm not specifically talking about the older stuff, like the original Lorax or Grinch. I'm talking some of the newer ones.
I did see Ron Howard's How the Grinch Stole Christmas back in theaters in 2000.
Okay.
So 20 years ago.
Is that the last one that you saw?
The last Dr. Seuss adaptation? Yeah, I didn't see the new Lorax. I didn't see the new Grinch.
I'm curious about the Lorax because isn't it Danny DeVito?
Yes.
Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah.
Kind of perfect, even if it was, because it's not live action, but it could be with Danny DeVito.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I kind of just figured with animated movies at a certain point, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna have a kid, and she's gonna want to watch all these things over. I didn't know that my kid wouldn't be able to sit still for more than 20 minutes, though she sits through the entire Sound of Music.
So she hasn't really watched any of the Dr. Seuss movies?
No.
Wow.
No.
Maggie's a big fan of Horton Hears a Who. We watched the original Lorax because she likes the book, which is some pretty heavy stuff for a not even 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
but there's some good stuff.
I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but there's this amazing Dr. Seuss book that's absolutely like not it. Oh, wow. I wish I could remember it. I can't even remember enough about it to talk about it right now. But I remember showing a video. Oh, it's about nuclear war.
Oh, yeah.
It's called, the Butter Battle Book.
The Butter Battle Book.
The Butter Battle Book. And
the Butter Battle Book?
What's that?
The Butter Battle Book?
Butter Battle Book. And it was published in 1984. Yeah, it's about the Cold War.
Huh.
And it's about like just kind of the absurdity of the nuclear arms race. And there was like a TV special on it too. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I'm sure you could find it. But yeah, if you're
Very
not
cool.
familiar with the Butter Battle Book in terms of Dr. Seuss, it is talking about heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty heavy.
Well, talking about heavy stuff, let's talk a little bit about something that's a little left of center, Hollywood Shuffle.
Yeah, Hollywood Shuffle.
Hollywood Shuffle is a movie that comes across as being, I don't know, a bit of just like a goofy, I don't know, set of vignettes, but it actually really has a lot to say. I feel like it misses the mark in a lot of ways, but for 1987,
yeah, I mean, you're
not seeing a lot of this kind of stuff.
Well, no, you have to consider it's Robert Townsend making his directorial debut. He, made money on acting jobs and was able to fund this. And he and Keenan Ivory Wayans wrote the screenplay, which I've seen it described as a series of vignettes, kind of like a Kentucky Fried Movie, though I didn't see it I saw it more of like a UHF.
I was going, when you said Weird Al before, I was like, well, we're going to talk about that dude in a little bit, because that's exactly UHF, which came out 2 years after this. There are so many similarities to the point that they both have Rambo and Indiana Jones parodies in them.
Though I would say Hollywood Shuffle's use of that is much more pointed, whereas in UHF, it's done more as a parody, whereas here Robert Townsend is satirizing more of, Hollywood's attitudes and tendencies. And
but I think that there's also still a component that is enjoying the parody aspect of it.
Yeah, particularly in segments like the Rambro. Yeah, right. But there are some moments in this that are really poignant. There are some moments that are really meaningful, especially considering the kind of the reckoning moment that we're in right now in terms of Black lives in America. And we look and lately there's been a call and no need for it to just be lately. It should just be constantly a check out great work by great artists, but a call to look at and discover or rediscover a lot of work by Black writers, directors, producers. And, we're still getting there. We still need to have much more equity in the industry. 1987, there was a hell of a lot less than there is now. Do you have a synopsis for Hollywood Shuffle?
You know what, Dan? I do have a synopsis for Hollywood Shuffle.
Because I don't want to start Why don't you do the
It's not
the
a long
synopsis?
one.
No, go for it.
Robert Townsend plays Bobby Taylor in this semi-autobiographical satire about coming up in Hollywood as a young Black actor in the 80s. Hot dog slinging Bobby has had a little bit of luck with his acting career, but with a big audition coming up for a movie called Jive Time Jimmy's Revenge, his excitement is through the roof. He is so blinded by his idea of success that he completely overlooks the racial stereotype that his character is meant to portray. After he nails the callback where they want to see who can pull off a dead-on Eddie Murphy, Bobby lands the lead role, but is faced with a huge dilemma. Does he continue on with the part and teach his kid brother that Black men are supposed to be caricatures of jive-talking pimps, or does he take the high road and leave the set? Since Bobby is a good, thoughtful man and role model, he does the latter, much to the surprise of his beloved grandmother. Woven throughout are satirical vignettes that play as daydreams, starring Townsend as a noir detective, a film reviewer, Rambro, a superhero, and has himself winning an Oscar. The running gag throughout is that Bobby can always get a job at the post office, and the movie ends with him acting in a commercial for the post office. And that's my synopsis.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one to really synopsize. I think that if it didn't have the vignettes woven throughout, there wouldn't be as much of a story to tell. And the vignettes really do help, explain what the problem is with representation at that time.
Well, and I think those daydreams, they really drive home the inner inner conflict and kind of put you into the perspective of a young Black actor who's trying to get work and be successful, but is having a much harder time doing that. I don't want to say it's impossible, but is having a much harder time doing that without sacrificing values, principles, and also, like you said, playing into the stereotype.
Right.
So, I mean, there's the one character who says to him, and there's so many of these great moments that I love that they're not spotlighted, but they're really significant moments. Like the one actor at the audition who tells Robert Townsend, is, "Don't ever let them, don't play a slave or a butler."
Jive, turkey.
This is bullshit.
What?
This is bullshit.
I mean, what are you talking about?
This is some more the white man's stereotype of a black man, yeah, brother.
Really?
Yeah, brother. Only an Uncle Tom would do this shit. They just looking for somebody to sell out.
Sell out?
The only role they gonna let us do is a slave, a butler, or some street hood or something. Don't sell out, brother. Don't be a butler or a slave.
Jesse Wilson. Jesse Wilson, you're next.
That's me.
Good luck, brother.
And then he winds up
Taking
really
over
going
the role.
Yeah, over the top. So it's like, yeah, it's easy to have your principles until you have to choose between that and the job.
Yeah.
And the pay and the opportunity. So throughout the story, you see the interactions with his grandmother from the beginning. Grandmother played by Helen Martin of 227, and of other things. But to me, I remember Helen Martin from 227 hanging out the window. So you see a lot of this conflict, this like, what do I do? And you see the admiration of the younger brother, the kind of the mocking of the guys he works with at the hot dog place. So we get John Witherspoon as the manager
boss.
there,
as
the boss. Keenan Ivory Wayans in there as one of his coworkers.
Right.
So I like the way that they build the pressure, but they also build the idea for the audience of what does it take to be a black guy. And he sees the guy who plays the bat. There's a bat in my house, which, oh man, you look that up and it's. I mean, a bat is like, that's a racial slur.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that, but I thought, I'm like, there's got to be something more significant to this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just some random, like, I don't know, what's the most ridiculous thing we could do? I don't know, a bat.
Yeah, and it's a super successful black actor who sold his racial identity out. Yeah. So that's the price you have to pay for success in the eyes of, this film, and likely, Hollywood, not even just in the 80s, still today.
Yeah.
And yes, you said earlier, it's definitely changed, but definitely not enough.
No.
Yeah, because at this time, you have Eddie Murphy as like the example of an actor who kind of broke through. And it seems like there is also a bit of resentment. Well, I know that Townsend, he directed, was it Delirious?
Raw.
He directed Raw.
Yeah, I don't know if I didn't read it as much as like professional jealousy or envy. I think I read it as that's who Hollywood sees as a black actor. And it's that they just want to find another Eddie Murphy and not not looking for the actor, but looking for someone who can represent a successful personality. Because at this point, by the time this comes out, Eddie Murphy is a huge star. He's going to be this comes out in March 1987, so just a couple of months before Beverly Hills Cop 2, which is and then Raw later that year, and he's already a big star, but that just between Beverly Hills Cop and Raw, like, launched him, and then that's when you have you get Coming to America and Harlem Nights.
Yeah.
But I think the Eddie Murphy Nightmare was hysterical.
Where all the actors are doing their Eddie Murphy impressions and trying to Eddie Murphy each other.
And rather than anyone saying like, no, I'm not Eddie Murphy. If you want Eddie Murphy, call Eddie Murphy. And everyone's just trying to be Eddie Murphy because, and I think that Townsend is kind of making that equivalent to, I don't want to go too far, but to slavery, and where it's, they want me to be an Eddie Murphy type. I'm going to go in and go.
Now, as we're really getting into this, I do want to mention we are two white people. Yeah. Our, perspectives are those of only our own. And we certainly welcome input from anybody else who would like to talk about Hollywood Shuffle. You can email us ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com because we'd love to hear other perspectives talking about this movie. Because, at the time, even though it was a little movie, it took years to make. I think that it was filmed over the course of several years. They were filming without permits. They were really doing it guerrilla style. And, it's kind of a forgotten movie. It's streaming on Amazon Prime, but it's definitely been kind of lost to time, especially because the success following this movie of Robert Townsend, but also Keenan Ivory Wayans, who co-wrote it, and as we mentioned was also one of the hot dog, the Winky Dinky dog. Is it Winky Dinky or Dinky Winky? Winky Dinky.
Winky Dinky.
Yeah. And he's also Jerry Curl in the Noir story.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's just a few years later, he went on to create In Living Color. But I think that once In Living Color hit, Hollywood Shuffle wasn't exactly the thing that people were watching as an example of Black representation in Hollywood.
I don't know if that's I don't know how true that is. I remember Hollywood Shuffle always being in the conversation about these like great early independent films from the 80s and that brought, new voices out. So Hollywood Shuffle has always been on my radar. It's just never been something it's been on the outskirts of my radar, and partially because other things have been bigger, like In Living Color. It's a cultural phenomenon. Hollywood Shuffle's an underground film, but I still remember hearing about it, reading about it, knowing that, Robert Townsend, that's who did Hollywood Shuffle, and you've seen Robert Townsend in other things, but
right.
Yeah. And sorry, to go back to what you're saying about our perspectives. Yeah. We don't have the perspectives of being Black actors or Black period in this, but like representation is an issue across the board. And equity is a huge problem. I mean, every industry, every business, every profession. And, to talk about, things haven't changed enough. I mean, as long as you still as long as there's still change to happen, then it hasn't changed enough. But I think that watching this movie in the perspective of June 2020, there were the sequence where Robert Townsend's doing the butler. He's got the dream sequence where he's playing he's doing the butler slave, the step and fetch it stereotype.
Oh yeah,
that reminded me so much of Get Out.
Yeah,
so much of Get Out that I'm like, Jordan Peele. I mean, has to have seen this, and not that he took Get Out from, but I'm like, there's that, just the idea and the vibe of it. I wouldn't be surprised if there was that tiny bit of influence there for Get Out.
Well, I mean, considering Jordan Peele's background in sketch comedy, it's extremely likely that this was a big part of his upbringing, just coming off of In Living Color. They kind of are in the same family, the Keenan Ivory Wayans verse.
Yeah.
And
the Wayans, yeah.
Yeah, the Wayans universe, which I love those Wayanses. But I was going back and watching some In Living Color, and such is true with Hollywood Shuffle, but the homophobia and I think that it's a lot. I mean, I think every movie that I've watched from '87 so far, like recently, has had some mention of fear of two men being with each other.
Yeah,
it was
a comedy go-to throughout the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, I mean, In Living Color, it was hard to find clips that didn't some of the core characters are effeminate men on film. Film. I mean, those characters, and you look at the power. I'm glad you brought up In Living Color, because you look at the power and the reach that the show had. You had a bunch of suburban white kids like me going into school and doing like 3 snaps in a Z formation and doing all the voices, because you watched it and it was funny. I thought about In Living Color while I watched Hollywood Shuffle, because I thought about how I felt like Hollywood Shuffle made a point with using stereotypes, and it very much had a purpose and a point to make about stereotypes and representation, where I'm so conflicted on In Living Color, because it's like one of these groundbreaking, shows that's produced by an almost entirely Black creative team and cast, but yet some of the stereotypes in it are just being played for laughs. And like Homie the Clown. Yeah. Like Homie the Clown. There's Homie the Clown. There was the Home Shoplifting Network. Yeah. Which I never felt like those sketches got, like, whereas a Key and Peele, there would be a twist or something at the end. Sure. Well, and I think that the sketches that you're talking about from In Living Color also are reminiscent of some of Eddie Murphy's characters on Saturday Night Live, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood.
Mr. Robinson, yeah.
I think that in a lot of ways, and I haven't seen all of them. Maybe I have, I don't know. But all of the sketches of Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. But it seemed like they were more dialed in than maybe some of the In Living Color sketches. But I'd have to go back and watch all of them to really.
I felt like with Mr. Robinson, it's like the character was a little like playing into stereotypes. It did feel with those, though, that there was always like this little twist of like, this is how the system wants it. And it was a little bit more in the recent, when Eddie Murphy came back to SNL and did Mr. Robinson.
But wasn't that one, because there were some really smart things in that one. I think about gentrification. I think that was like the focus of it, was gentrification.
Yeah.
Which is like really smart and exactly how it should have been played.
Yeah. No, it was spot on. But that's my conflict about In Living Color, because some of it is so great, and there's some like brilliant characters and impersonations. Keenan Ivory Wayans doing Mike Tyson on the first episode of Hi Robin. I mean, that was everyone at school. It's going around and doing it. We weren't doing the Mike Tyson impersonation. We were doing an impersonation of Keenan Ivory Wayans doing Mike Tyson. Yeah, so I think that Hollywood Shuffle is a little bit more direct and focused in its purpose. I didn't feel. I mean, there's some point. The scene when he walks off the set of the exploitation film, Jimmy whatever, and by the way, I gotta call out some theft. There's some plagiarism here, because when Robert Townsend's playing the part, and they call cut, and they give him the notes, and they give him the note to be more to quote unquote act more Black, I think the director says. Yeah. Which I don't know if you remember a film from about 15 years ago called Crash,
Yes.
in which Tony Danza says almost an identical line to Terrence Howard.
Brett, moving on.
Okay, that takes us into
I'm gonna
scene
keep
12.
one in the
And
last
we are
one.
in her bathroom.
Jamal, that's what I'm talking about. Right up.
Cap, you got a second?
Yeah, Fred, I just want to grab some coffee.
Yeah, listen, I think we need another take, buddy.
That looked pretty terrific, man.
This is gonna sound strange, but is Jamal seeing a speech coach or something?
What do you mean?
Have you noticed, this is weird for a white guy to say, but have you noticed he's talking a lot less black lately?
No, I haven't noticed that.
Really? Like in this scene, he was supposed to say, don't be talking about that, and he changed it to don't talk to me about that.
Wait a minute. You think because of that, the audience won't recognize him as being a black man? Come on.
Is there a problem, Cam?
Excuse me?
Is there a problem, Cam?
No, we don't have a problem.
I mean, because all I'm saying is it's not his character. Eddie's supposed to be the smart one, not Jamal, right? I mean, you're the expert here, but to me, it rings false.
We're gonna do it one more time.
Thanks, buddy.
Everybody back to one, please. Let's do it one more time.
I don't remember much of that movie. I saw it once. I was not a big fan, but I had made a video in grad school. It got a little statue but as we're seeing today, statues don't mean shit.
I'm totally joking.
No, I know.
Quick.
Totally get you. Yeah.
Speaking of statues, in the dream sequence where he's winning the Oscar, I like how everybody he calls out, the people who he beat in his category, are still people who are getting nominated and winning Oscars today. It's like Al Pacino, but he's also in the same category as Meryl Streep. So I'm wondering, like, what is this category that he's in?
I don't know. I kind of got the impression that he was just like calling out all of the great actors who were also nominated that year for whatever, that he's in their company. I don't know.
Oh, I was under the impression that they were the opponents for this particular award, and it was all of these male actors and then Meryl Streep.
An interesting side project would be to see how many fictional Oscar nominations actors have racked up, because like I feel like Naked Gun 33 1/3. The nominees are like Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Harrison Ford.
That's another Weird Al movie.
Yeah.
He shows up for a second.
Oh wait, and then there's another movie that it's at the Oscars. Maybe that is the one I'm thinking of, but I feel like it's an ending credits sequence where.
No, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I'm totally.
I cut you off. So do you remember where you were going with any of that?
No, I'm just.
You
saying,
were talking
man.
about Crash.
Yeah, Crash. Let me, first of all, brief explanation of why I'm not a big fan of Crash, because I felt Crash was so didactic and it felt like a big, long after-school special with an A-list cast. And some
Tony
of the
Danza?
making a movie about racism, Angela. It felt like an after-school special. Some of the performances were great. I mean, Terrence Howard. I know Terrence Howard is,
Terrence
not anyone's favorite person other than Terrence Howard. But his acting and that's great. Matt Dillon is great. Not Tandy Newton. But man, I'm sorry, I did not need Crash. But apparently, they needed that line from Hollywood Shuffle.
Thieves,
damn thieves. But yeah,
citizens arrest.
Call the citizens on patrol. Okay,
Yeah.
Wrong 1987 movie. So yeah, there's some really great pieces in here. The Black Acting School is another one of those. It's a sketch. It's the type of sketch that you would have seen on In Living Color, but
well, In Living Color maybe wouldn't exist had it not been for Hollywood Shuffle.
Oh. Well, without Hollywood Shuffle and I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
And I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, which was a year later.
Yeah,
which is
a year
awesome. I'm Gonna
two,
Get You,
yeah.
Sucker is a movie that I watched as a kid, and I'd love to watch it again because I'm sure that I didn't get anything it was talking about, but I just enjoyed it.
That's That's a great one. That's one that I can always kind of turn on. And when I was in high school, I had a chemistry teacher when I was in 11th grade who basically gave up on teaching my class halfway through the year. There were a couple of characters. There were a couple of characters in the class who made it a bit challenging. And at a certain point, he just, all right, whatever. So we just kind of started bringing in movies.
Okay.
And I brought in I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. I would do my game where, and if you're from the New York metropolitan area and grew up in the 80s or 90s, you'll get what I'm saying here. But I always used to bring in my little VHS cassette and say, oh, don't worry, it's the Channel 11 version. And then when it would get
WPIX.
Yes, I'm like, I taped this off Channel 11 Sunday at 3 p.m. So there is no profanity or nudity in it. And then, wait, no, that's right. It was on HBO. My bad. But I remember my teacher, Mr. Cassidy, he loved the scene where Chris Rock goes in for the rib. And wants to he goes in, he wants to get the soda poured into his hands because he doesn't have enough money. And then he's like, do you got change for 100? Because he just wants one rib. He's like, I just want one rib. But my chemistry teacher loved that scene.
Oh, yeah?
So we used to rewind it and watch it over again.
I loved that movie, Fly Guy. So good.
Fly Guy. Yeah. Again, though, it plays I mean, for the purpose of parody and satire, plays into stereotypes, but without as much of the messaging.
Right.
It's not meant to be a message movie. It's meant to be a parody of exploitation. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, with Hollywood Shuffle, it's Robert Townsend's really making a personal statement and saying, like, if you want to be an actor in this town, not just a stereotype, but you want to act, you want to be an actor and you're Black, this is how hard it is. Yeah.
And didn't mention his uncle, who was an entertainer. I think he was a singer when he was younger, who now owns a barber shop. And there's like a nice moment where he's kind of talking about why he gave up his dreams of becoming a performer. And I don't know, there were some really like touching moments.
Hey, Bobby, come on in. Just getting ready to close up the place. How's it going?
It's going.
So yeah, Bobby, what's been happening? How's Grandma and the family?
I quit my job. I was working there for 3 years.
And you should have quit 3 years ago. That job was just a waste of your time. You've got to do it while you're young, Bobby. Before you fall in love and get a family. Because if you don't, time's got a way of creeping up on you, kicking you in your ass.
What if I'm not that good? What if I don't make it?
What if you do make it? And what if you are that good? Bobby, you'll never know until you try. You gotta give it your all, Bobby. You got to give it everything you got. I know. Because it happened to me. I stopped believing in me. Started listening to all those other people tell me what I couldn't do. I kept listening. And listening. Until one day, I started believing it. And I quit. Lost my chops.
Oh, there was magic in the night.
Man, when I was singing, I was the happiest man alive. On stage, doing it. Bobby, there ain't nothing to it but to do it. You could be the greatest actor ever born. Doing Shakespeare on the stage, playing the hero in some movie. Maybe the first Black Superman. One day, win that Oscar. You gotta believe in yourself, Bobby. Don't play yourself cheap. Don't ever let anybody take away your dream.
Got to do it while you're young.
Yeah.
He said, no, I wrote that down because I'm like, that hit home for me.
Yeah.
Pursuing a career in acting or the arts while you're younger rather than waiting and possibly never doing it. Could relate to
or just
that.
wait till you retire and then pick it up and become one of those old people that's in everything.
Yeah. Pull a Brian Dennehy and just like work in accounting for years and then just say, fuck it, I'm going to do movies.
Yeah.
Be a big star. Pour one out for Brian Dennehy. I know we've poured one out for him before, but I don't
absolutely.
Pour one out.
And while we are pouring one out, didn't John Witherspoon pass away like last year?
John Witherspoon, definitely. Yeah, he passed away. We got to pour one out for John Witherspoon.
Yeah.
Oh, man's hilarious.
Oh my God, so funny. And for anybody who isn't familiar with him by name, you'd be definitely familiar with seeing him on screen in the Friday movies. I think is where he definitely stood out the most.
Craig's dad in Friday.
Yeah, he
Boomerang.
was in Soul Plane, Bulworth.
I love him. Oh man, I love Bulworth. I think he first caught my eye in Boomerang, and he plays. I want to say it's David Alan Greer's father in that.
Mr. Jackson is the role. I don't know.
He comes into I know he comes in for dinner at like Eddie Murphy's apartment, and he's got like the mushroom print inside of his jacket. And he's got mushroom. He's like, you talking about coordinating? John Witherspoon,
man, that is not the outfit for us. Two guys with gout. Mushrooms are a gout trigger.
We can wear them. We just shouldn't eat them.
I know. What I was thinking the other day is like, man, are psychedelics not in my future?
John, limited. First of all, you're supposed to drink a lot of water anyway. So just drink. Drink.
Okay. All right. Here's the
that wasn't
deal.
A serious question, was it?
It was a little column A, little column B question. Dan has had gout for 15 years, something like that.
Oh, I've had gout now. Yeah, going on 15. It'll be 15 years this summer. It's my gout anniversary.
And I was recently diagnosed. This is a family curse. So sorry to our daughters. No, it's actually no. Women are not prone to getting it. So.
Yeah, no. I feel like is that going to be another podcast? Like two guys with gout?
No. We've said everything we need to say.
I don't know, man. I feel like the gout suffers of the world. Trigger. Yeah, mushrooms are good. But you know what, though? If you just don't eat too many, limited amount in any type of mushroom.
Just enough to get you into outer space?
Enough to get you into outer space. Enough to add some flavor and strange texture to a meal, but not. I wouldn't just go foraging for mushrooms and just shoving the mushrooms in your face.
Dan and I will not be remaking The Phantom Thread anytime soon, unless we want it to be hyper realistic.
No one should ever remake The Phantom Thread. That movie's perfect.
It's so good. I love it.
Like, Daniel Day-Lewis should have gotten all 3 Oscars for just that role.
So we're recording this the same week as the whole cops thinking that they got poisoned at Shake Shack. This
right.
is that week.
I was curious to see how specific you were going to get.
What do you mean?
I'm like, well, because when you start saying, well, it's the whole week with cops, I'm just like, pretty much the whole
thinking
season.
They've been poisoned from Shake Shack just because they got the shits from some milkshakes. But there was a meme going around.
They're all lactose intolerant.
That's like some like screen grabs from the Phantom Thread, and it's like Shake Shack employee, and it has Alma with the mushrooms, and then it shows like police department, and it's Daniel Day-Lewis eating, and it's. I was like, this is such a specific meme, and I'm so here for it.
It's a very specific audience for that. For that
me.
Meme.
That's it.
Yeah. And I would say Paul Thomas Anderson certainly has his fans.
Sure. Yeah. That's just
maybe.
As far as his movies go, that's one reference that is less frequently made.
True. I think the I drink your milkshake is you. Oh, that would have been a good one. There we go.
More appropriate. Way more appropriate. Wow.
Going to be a star, huge star. Paul Thomas Anderson movies, yeah.
So, Dan, any thoughts about Hollywood Shuffle before we get into our thoughts about how to bring it back?
Going into it, I tried not to read too much in terms of reviews or critiques, but when I read this, and it's like a Kentucky Fried Movie, and I was like, oh, okay. And, the running time is pretty short, so, okay, not bad. But it really, I guess this was one time where reading a couple of reviews did not set me up to expect more than what I got. It was one of those experiences where I just, as I was watching it, I just had a lot of these moments from, really appreciated the thought. I think the way, like, if you're going to make a film where you have a lot of sketches, to use those sketches to portray the conscience and inner conflict of a character is, I think, so smart. And it makes this movie stand out, even against movies like Kentucky Fried Movie, which I'm a big fan of Zucker Abrams Zucker. But Hollywood Shuffle, I think, actually deserves a little bit more credit than it gets, and it deserves to be promoted a little bit, especially while it's streaming on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So, and what are your before we move into the next segment?
So going back to what we had mentioned earlier about UHF, a movie that we definitely saw a zillion times, when we were growing up, I feel like looking at these two movies side by side is a perfect example of, white privilege, where UHF is the version of this movie that a white person can do because they don't have the same roadblocks that somebody who is black would have. UHF is about a white guy who's a failure and can't keep a job, who is handed a television station. And they play in similar ways with their dream sequence vignettes that have parodies of the exact same things. But like you were saying earlier, Hollywood Shuffle focuses those parodies not just to drive the plot forward of Weird Al's story, which, don't get me wrong, I love UHF and it is perfect, but it could only happen for a white character, especially in the 80s.
Well, from the very beginning, the opening sequence is a dream sequence he's having falling asleep at work.
Yeah.
For no good reason. We're not like, it's not like Weird Al is working 3 jobs and, raising a kid on his own.
They do have very similar jobs too. He's at a burger joint and Bobby is at the hot dog joint.
Yeah, but I doubt Bobby would dare fall asleep on the job.
No. Well, he just wouldn't show up because he has an audition.
Yeah, but like you just said, he gets handed this station to run. So not only does he not have to worry about how am I going to produce stuff, he's given his own production house where there's a guy who just lives there.
Yeah,
who's the producer, and he doesn't really have to do much other than just,
and he succeeds
daydream.
By accident. He succeeds because of somebody else that happens to make his station a success. And then, things work out for him more and more. But that movie could happen to that character because he's white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's my final observation about Hollywood Shuffle. And it's hard for me to watch it without also thinking about UHF. Because, they're kind of like companion pieces for one another. And I feel like UHF helps prove the point of Hollywood Shuffle.
That's a really good point. would love to see this as like a double feature somewhere. And I normally am not a fan of double featuring two very similar movies, but I think looking at them through that lens of race and privilege would really make it fascinating to watch Hollywood Shuffle first and then UHF.
Yeah. So one of my thoughts would be to remake UHF with a black cast. That was like, just to add to that thought process. The other thought that I had was to have a sequel, with Bobby Taylor, that character, 30 some odd years later, and where things are now with that character and in that world. Because it's like, he left that movie. He's still go on to act, but we don't see where that leads to. And as time has gone on and there have been movements like, and I don't know if you would necessarily call this a movement, but the whole Oscars so white movement to increase black representation in awards, it'd be interesting to see how that would have affected Bobby Taylor as he goes on to be an actor.
So interesting. My idea was more of I guess kind of a sequel, but not more of a remake almost, taking that same format. And maybe it could involve it could be Bobby Taylor in 2020 showing how things really haven't changed. And whereas he's not making the movie Hollywood Shuffle in Hollywood Shuffle, maybe it could just be a continuation of, it could be coming back to his story and seeing again in sketch format the conflict and the issues being faced put in that setting. And I was thinking it'd be fantastic if you could have lots of different, almost like combining Hollywood Shuffle and I think it was it Creep Show, where there were like different directors, like Creep Show, like where you'd get, Dave Chappelle does a segment. Key and Peele do a segment. Definitely Keenan Ivory, like there are Wayanses, bring, the
Wayanses are out there.
But bring back Keenan Ivory Wayans and Robert Townsend. Why not get Eddie Murphy? Get find a director. Get like a Craig Brewer, who I liked what he did with Dolomite Is My Name, and
Dolomite Is My Name is great.
Yeah, shows. I mean, he's a great director, but someone like that to kind of assemble it and put it all together, but to just celebrate these writers and all of these people who have written comedy that has been commentary on race.
Yeah.
And using humor. Look at Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle's dropping his Netflix special about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and about the movement for justice. Why not? Like, Chappelle's show is brilliant, and Dave Chappelle clearly is still firing on all cylinders. Yeah. So why not bring it, like Dave Chappelle doing a sketch on screen, having a segment that's whether it's Key and Peele together, which to me that's what I want.
Oh yeah, they're so great together.
Yeah,
they're great independently as well.
And I don't know. I always have this moment where I'm like, but does Jordan Peele do comedy anymore? Is he? Of course he does.
Why not?
Yeah,
of course.
Of course he does. Yeah, no, he's become such a like icon in the horror genre, though I don't know that I would necessarily say, like psychological thriller genre. And he's got Candyman, coming up, which I think did he directed or produced that?
I think produced it.
Yeah,
I don't think he directed it. I could be wrong.
He's a powerhouse. I mean, Jordan Peele could direct this.
Jordan Peele just came up like out of nowhere as like a horror/thriller movie Supermind. And it was just like, oh, this comedy guy is doing a scary movie. Whoa. Okay. Like nobody saw Get Out coming.
And it's just so wonderful on so many levels.
Mm-hmm. I love Us too.
I might need to see that one again. It didn't quite get me the way that Get Out did.
They're very, very different, but
yeah, well, yeah,
I think that Us was tremendous. Thought it was great.
Yeah, maybe I need to see it again. But damn, Get Out. It's a hell of a movie. I mean, yeah, so I just see like, you know, a new Hollywood shuffle, and what is it like? You know, what's the perspective like now? What is it like being black in Hollywood 30 odd years after Hollywood Shuffle?
How are things still the same?
It doesn't all have to be set today. You could show a timeline, like almost a satirical timeline.
That will be really fascinating.
Yeah. Like imagine if you satirized In Living Color and you showed and you just took those stereotypes and turned them up to the point where it's like, oh, wow, I can't believe they put Homie the Clown on the air.
Yeah, right.
There was the other character Damon Wayans did. It was like he was homeless and he was slurring and
yeah.
I forget the character's name, but it like I could see that.
What would also be interesting?
OJ.
Yeah, what would also be interesting is seeing things throughout time through the perspective of, you know, a black actor or black actors alongside the white perspective of like, we've solved the race problem in movies and look at all the representation that there is now. But then there's like the reality of it versus what?
Go watch The Help. Yeah. Look at The Help.
Exactly. So anyway.
Oh boy.
That's our thoughts on that. We'd love to hear what you think though. And please write to us, ruinchildhoodspot@gmail.com.
And if you haven't seen it, I highly encourage you to check it out.
It's not a very long movie. It's fun to watch.
And may I suggest, because I mean, clearly right now, a lot of people are playing catch up and using movies and documentaries to educate themselves and to gain more perspective that's different from their own. And I have shouted, I've been telling everyone left and right to watch The 13th by Ava DuVernay which is on Netflix, also on YouTube for free. The 13th, if you're going to watch The 13th in one sitting, you're going to sit down and really sit with it. This would be an appropriate, I don't want to say palate cleanser, but The 13th will, unless you're familiar with the history covered in that movie, it will rock your socks off. And to continue to, you know, gain appreciation and look at the works that show perspectives of black artists, I think Hollywood Shuffle is almost that great companion piece that, like, I'm going to watch The 13th and then I'm going to watch Hollywood Shuffle. Yeah, I mean I don't know. I couldn't necessarily watch anything after watching The 13th because
that's what I was thinking.
Wrote a bunch of emails.
I would suggest then maybe the next day watching Hollywood Shuffle.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. I guess I said right after, but yeah, it doesn't.
Watch The 13th. Take notes. Sit with it.
Yeah,
and then watch Hollywood Shuffle.
I mean, I guess I'm good. I've seen The 13th because I showed it to my classes last year, so I've seen it like five. I've watched it five times, and I mean, it's burned into my brain.
That's great. You showed it to your classes.
Yeah, you know, it was a little risky, and I probably should have done a little bit more of like sending home notes and letters and things. But I was getting into an argument writing unit, and I felt like a documentary was a great way to show kids how an argument can be made and supported with evidence, and that you could take the most out of left field claim or thesis, which, not that The 13th is out of left field, but if you have the evidence, like, it's not that crazy if you have the evidence. So when Ava DuVernay sets out to prove that the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which supposedly abolished slavery, actually ensured its continuance through the clause about convicted criminals being the exception. And it's like, no one can be a slave unless they're a convicted criminal. And then it was like, let's make a lot of new laws so that we can arrest people.
It's bad.
Yeah. So, but I felt like I was like, well, you know what? If I'm going to show them a really challenging claim being supported incredibly well, this is the best thing for me to do. And I had a black student who was upset. I don't teach in the most diverse school, but, I have black students, and I did have one student who opted not to watch the film in the class.
Yeah, that's fair.
But you know what? She had a space to do that and said her piece and explained to me in front of the whole class, which I thought took some guts, but kind of said that she thought it was like insensitive for me to show it. And
that's fair.
And, I said, I respect that. I said, here's a pass to go to the library. And, I respect that. And I talked to her mother and, did everything I needed to do. But yeah, I feel like there are a lot of my kids from last year, they watched that movie and they studied it and they analyzed it.
Good.
So I am not one to say that, oh yes, you should watch a funny movie after you watch that. Yeah, but anyway, as you're making your list of you're going to watch the films and buy the books and everything and support Black artists and filmmakers, don't forget Robert Townsend, because he was making it happen in 1987 or earlier than that even.
Though he did not too long ago do a Bill Cosby special. But watch Hollywood Shuffle. It's great.
Watch Hollywood Shuffle, maybe Meteor Man. I've never seen Meteor Man. So
I never seen Meteor Man either. I watched the trailer for it earlier and it seems crazy.
Yeah.
But a lot of fun. It's a superhero movie.
Looks like a lot of fun. So yeah, he's the superhero movie. So speaking of superheroes, there is none greater than our own real life superhero, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
A very busy guy in 1987.
Very busy indeed. In fact, he would have been much busier if the film we're covering next week had come out on its initial release date. Something that I'm sure we'll talk about.
Okay.
Next time when we talk about The Running Man.
Yeah.
Get ready. We're going all the way back to 1987 to then go back to 2017 and then a little bit forward to like now, or 20, the 20 teens, the late 20 teens. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, Maria Conchita Alonso, Yaphet Kotto, and Richard Dawson.
Maria Conchita Alonso, whose name came up in a podcast I was listening to earlier today, and in a non-Running Man context, and I was like, what are the odds? Very slim. I never hear people talking about her.
They say lightning never strikes twice in the same place. They also say that you don't usually talk about Maria Conchita Alonso twice in one day, but every rule has been made to be broken.
And if all goes according to plan, joining us on our next episode will be somebody who will definitely not be able to pronounce Maria Conchita Alonso's name, my wife, Laura.
There are a lot of difficult names in this cast, so...
Okay, we'll run down the list of all the names at the beginning, and then at the end, we're going to make her, from memory, recite all of the names.
Oh, boy. Well,
She'll get Arnold Schwarzenegger. She'll get Jesse Ventura.
She'll get Richard Dawson, right?
No.
Maybe, but character names, Damon Killian.
Yeah, she'll get the character names, I'm sure. Anyway, we'll find out next time on Ruined Childhoods.
Good journey.
Good journey.
Thursday nights at 8 p.m., America's favorite TV show, There's a Bat in My House. The show that asks the burning question, can a black bat from Detroit find happiness with a white suburban family? Starring America's favorite funny man, the hilarious zany B.B. Sanders as Batty Boy.
What's all this noise? Can't a bat hang upside down in this cave and get some sleep?
He's half bat, half soul brother.
Say what?
But together he adds up to big laughs. There's a Bat in My House. Thursday, 8 p.m.